Okay, are you ready? Does everybody feel...
I'm not
ready.
a total pucoid.
You're not a total.
You are so not grody.
Seeing you doesn't gag me with a spoon.
That's an improvement.
Welcome to the Most Excellent 80s Movies Podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and a podcaster slash film worker slash doer of things, plus a self-proclaimed woman with opinions, and don't we need many of them around? Yes,
We
always.
do.
We revisit the 80s movies that we think we love or love to hate with modern eyes to see how they hold up. And this is Valley Girl, a movie selection from 1983.
Ow, gag me! How could you?
For sure, Brody. Besides, it's totally gnarly birth control.
I can't stand it. Okay, so he's awesome.
Valley Girl.
She's out there somewhere.
This is the story of a boy from Hollywood who never dreamed the girl he'd want most was down here.
Hello?
Hello. Who invited you?
Oh, wow, you mean you have to be invited? That explains it.
What?
Well, everyone is dressed weird. See, if I had been invited, I would have known this was a costume party.
Right.
It's the story of a girl from the valley who never dreamed she'd ever be seen with a boy from over here.
Like, I'm not getting out of this car.
All right, but when they attack the car, save the radio. So when can I see you again?
I'm here with you now.
I know.
This is the story of Randy and Julie, the way they come together, and the people who try to pull them apart.
Like, don't you think they have parties over there? Oh, where? At the zoo?
This geek that she's with could scar her for life.
God. For life?
If you think she's confused, you should see her father.
I'm together now. Be right there.
Julie's cool. Randy's hot. She's from the valley. He's not. Valley Girl.
Oh, bitchin', is this in 3D? No, but your face is.
Aren't we all? Faced in 3D. Okay. I'm Chrissy Lenz, comedian, improviser of National Comedy Theater. And with me, as always, is...
Nathan Blackwell, filmmaker and podcaster, apparently.
I think that's valid, Nathan.
It's O-Fish, yes. And we have two very exciting special guests today, beginning with somebody who was with us on the Buckaroo Banzai
Yes.
episode. Welcome back.
Why, thank you so much. It's a joy to be back.
Tell
Two of my
the
favorite
people who you are.
Well, I'm Alice Baker. I am also a podcaster, and I decided to start calling myself a film worker because of that dude sitting across from me,
Yes.
as I often find myself working on his films. I air quoted, and I don't know why, Nathan.
It comes through. It really comes through.
Which part got the air quotes?
Nathan.
Right. Allegedly.
Allegedly Nathan.
Am I my mysterious double, or
Could be. Could be. I would peg you
is
for
that
an evil
his
twin.
real name?
And I'm super excited that the beautiful lady sitting to my left has joined us.
Our super, super, super fan.
Hi, I'm Liza Sullivan. I'm Alice's sister, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm totally excited to be on my first podcast ever. And I'm a huge super fan of the movie. Saw it when it first came out. I've always loved it. Had it VHS, had it on DVD. I have the soundtrack. I mean,
The soundtrack is amazing.
It's very good.
It makes the movie, I think.
It tries to.
I think that's a hint. I think that's a hint of Ms. Lenz's opinion.
So tell us about your history with this movie.
Well, I saw it when it first came out. I think I must have been 19.
So this is 1983.
Yes, 1983. I would have just graduated high school in 1982 and went to see it in the movie theater and was just dazzled by it. I totally fell in love with Randy. That's totally how I wanted my boyfriend to be, and I thought that Julie was amazing, and I liked the story, and it was funny, and it had a happy ending, and the music was great. Just really good. And that I Melt With You, I mean, I know everybody loves that song, but that is my husband and I's theme song. That's our song.
That's so great.
Oh, come on, Nathan. Thank you, Nathan.
I could definitely see like being at that age and just like wanting to, because Valley Girl, that's what became the sort of trend for young people to be like, oh my God, right? To sort of try and echo what that, like in the way that Clueless did in the 90s.
Pre-Clueless.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It was the Clue. If you're gonna, the Clueless was the one for your generation, right? Valley Girl was the one for our generation, and the pervasiveness of the language is all of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's still. I mean, you know, I can't get through a sentence without saying like.
Absolutely, and that comes from Valley Girl talk.
Yep.
Thankfully, not all of it stuck around, but none of us can escape that.
Nope.
None of us can escape that.
And it would, like, you know, I don't know, just like the thought that the difference between the Valley and Hollywood is like
Nowadays.
two different worlds.
Oh my God. So I'm trying to think of like what the Phoenix equivalent of that would be. You know, Scottsdale versus South Phoenix. You
Yeah,
know,
probably.
I mean, I bet you
Levine.
those differences are just as strong. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, I believe it. I believe
Yeah,
it.
or Levine, which is kind of Cowtown.
Yeah.
Or it was when I went to high school. Probably not anymore. Probably.
No, I'm sure it is. So what about you, Alice? What was your experience?
I don't know if I saw it in the theater, so that would have been my junior year in high school, and I can't remember what the rating was. I mean, it had to have been an R rating with the boob shots,
And the,
right?
So
and the
much
language.
boobs.
And the F word.
So much boobs.
I don't know.
I have three words for
I'm
you.
gonna
Game
go out on a
of
limb and say
Thrones.
it's
Too
PG.
much boobs?
No, I'm not saying too much boobs.
Oh,
I'm saying so much boobs.
I don't think it's so much boobs at all.
Well,
I was really
Perhaps
surprised
at
that
the
there were any
time.
boobs at all in
And-
this, like,
We'll have to come
movie.
back. We'll have to come back to the boobs because
Yes.
there's boob
Liza
trivia.
Liza
Boob
has
trivia.
information
There
about
is
boob trivia.
There's boob trivia. And
Yeah, it's rated
there's-
R.
It's
there's
rated
a-
R.
yeah.
So I doubt, although I did sneak into other R-rated movies as a teenager, so maybe I did see it. But I must have seen it later. But I too remember it being pretty pivotal, like informative. I don't know what the right word is that
Influential.
everybody talked about that movie. Everybody, either you were on the one side or the other. If you were the cool kid, you were, you know, with the kids from Hollywood, and if you were the rich kid, you were totally wearing your polo shirt with the collar turned up. It was very, 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 it was hard to escape. It was impossible to escape if you were a teenager when that movie came out.
which is like, it's so weird because you can't, it's nowhere now. It's not like a cult favorite now.
No.
It's nowhere now. Nobody's doing screenings of it. Nobody's like, oh,
Never
we must,
on cable.
Yeah. It was very, very, very hard to find to watch for the podcast. So, you know, so how did that like fail to make the transition to be like a Pretty in Pink or a 16 Candles or something that
Breakfast Club.
that we just like, oh, that's quintessential 80s.
Well, I think a part of this movie is that it was, in a lot of ways, an antidote to the movies that were out then, like these sex-crazed teenager comedies like Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds and things like that. And I feel like one of the things, I just kind of perusing like Roger Ebert's review of it, like he found it to be such a breath of fresh air because of all the other teenage films that were out there at the time, you know. So I don't know why. It could be that it's a relationship with its comparison of what everyone else was seeing and how this was so different than that made it kind of like a place in time. But it's interesting. I think this is the first movie we've covered on the podcast that's actually directed by a woman.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Chrissy, you should be doing a better job.
Shame on me.
Martha Coolidge.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that the reason that it doesn't hold up, like people don't go back to it, is because Nicolas Cage as the romantic love interest is so hard to get past. Like, watching it now, I'm just like, I cannot get past it. That's Nicolas Cage. That's Nicolas Cage. And he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, were you like, oh my God, break me off a piece of that hot Nicolas Cage.
Of that eagle hair.
What was happening to his
That
chest
had
hair?
to have been purposeful.
It was.
There's no way.
Liza knows.
It
Liza
was.
knows. She can
Tells
tell you
everything.
She can
The
tell
chest hair trivia begins.
And so it begins. He did the chest hair himself. He came up with that weird triangle haircut, and it was because he was the youngest person on set. He was 18. Everybody else was older than he was. And Martha said, Nick, you're the youngest, but you're the hairiest.
Oh, no.
We have to take care of this somehow, because if you you have to look younger. So that's what he came up with. That was his shave job, to look younger.
Because he's bananas. Like, that's a crazy person. It's a crazy person solution.
So I've never found Nicolas Cage physically attractive, and if I were, it would not be this version of Nicolas Cage, certainly, that I found physically attractive.
So which versions of Nicolas Cage?
None.
None?
None. I've just never found him attractive.
Not
So
even
TBD.
National Treasure.
TBD.
Like,
No.
National Treasure is probably my favorite Nicolas Cage.
So you're, so
I'd
you
have to go
find
Raising
him-
Arizona.
Yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
Nicolas.
That's
I mean,
definitely
that's
far
a great.
flung.
But I'm not talking about his performance. I'm not talking about his personality. I'm just talking about his physical appearance.
Oh yeah, no.
And I've never found him attractive, but the character that he plays in this movie I find appealing.
Yes.
And totally am down with it. That would have been the guy that I would have wanted to try and date in high school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure.
I think it's interesting, Alice, that you had the same reaction to Nicolas Cage that Chrissy did, which was, oh, Nicolas Cage is a leading man. Like, oh, what the?
Yeah.
And I just, seeing the movie for the first, I never felt that way. I just
Right.
fell in love with Randy. And, I'm not in love with crazy Nicolas Cage. I don't think anybody is. But in that movie, he was great.
I mean, I love him as a persona. Like, I mean, he has,
I don't know
he
that I
has
can go that
carved
far.
out a niche for himself that only he can occupy. Like, and he's definitely leaning into it these days. But yeah, it is really interesting to see him as like a teenage heartthrob. How do you feel about Nicolas Cage as the object of our affection, Nathan?
It's a stretch.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't find myself wanting to be him. Since the genders are kind of flipped in terms of my watching experience, I'm sure, of identifying more with him than like the female lead. But I definitely gravitated to him as an outsider.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that, like a lot of people, we feel like outsiders. Like I was never like the extroverted outsider. I was the quiet introverted outsider who was like in the corner drawing something. But yeah, I he is totally bananas. I liked him in it, but yeah, for sure.
I mean,
it's
the
tough.
shower scene. How can you not be?
Oh my God.
I mean, it's just so charming.
But that's such a bad plan.
We can go into all of the stalkery, date
What
rapey
was right?
aspects of this movie.
Well, it's
looking
the
at it.
1980s.
Exactly.
That's
looking
how
at
we
it with
related
our-
to one another was
Yes.
to
Yes.
stalk.
We had
and
to
or
graduate
date rape.
to where we are now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
where most of us
like
Yeah.
are today.
story wise, and there's a lot to like about this movie. Like I love the main girl Julie, her relationship with her parents. I love the parents so much. They're like these hippies that like their main concern is that she gets to have like a good teenage experience, or like
Yeah, and they've got this age gap of like 17 years between them.
and like the dad's always sneaking off to smoke weed in the bathroom. They're great. So like story wise, Julie is like beautiful, popular, her friends are all beautiful and popular, and like all they do is talk about boys and go shopping, essentially. It's
I
like
don't really see how that's so different than teenagers today, though. That's
no,
not what
I
you're
don't-
saying.
no,
okay,
no,
good.
not at
okay.
all.
I was like, but that seems 100% normal to
that's
me.
like what the story is. It was really great to see like the mall and like the
mall
mall
culture.
The
Culture.
MasterCard, how they slid it
Ka-chunk,
across.
ka-chunk.
It seems so old fashioned.
Yeah. and like just the shopping and the trying on of the clothes. This movie has like 20 montages.
And they're all
That's
really
a bit
good.
hyperbolic, but yes, it has a lot of montages.
No, there's 20. I counted them. No, I did not. But it's like a movie of montages. So we start with a shopping montage, and Julie is not into her boyfriend Tommy anymore because he is totally lame.
He is the worst. I mean, looking back at the movie, I mean, he's just the worst boyfriend ever. Like, they almost overdid how bad he is.
Yeah, played by the gentleman who will one day be Buck from Kill Bill with the pussy wagon.
No!
The rapist. He's the rapist.
Oh my God. Of course he is. This is like...
He never branched out. That's his archetype.
Yeah.
The asshole.
No, he is.
Works for him.
And he is just that like archetypal 80s asshole. There's no redeeming quality to
About him at all. No.
Because I don't find him attractive.
No.
Neither do
At
I.
all. I mean, just to look at.
Neither do I.
No. Well,
My dude, I would go out with Fred. He's my dude. Fred's my dude.
Fred's a sidekick.
Fred the sidekick.
With the middle
I am
blue
a
hair.
true sidekick lover.
You are. You always go for the sidekick.
I always go for the sidekick.
So Tommy's totally lame, but Brad is bitchin'. Brad's like, it's literally the same guy.
Dude,
It's
yes,
like
absolutely.
just a different version of the same
Right.
guy.
exactly.
100%.
So they break up on the night of a party, and Nicolas Cage and his friend crash this party.
Yes.
And that's what the story comes from, because he sees Julie and is truly dazzled.
Yes.
They drive away.
That girl, Julie.
She's truly dazzling.
Truly dazzling.
So speaking of Randy, Nicolas Cage's character, this movie is so fucking Randy. This movie is so horny.
It is. But it's, I mean, yet on
But
the scale of 80s movies, teen comedy horniness, it's not, it's super, super horny, but it's like, it's not a Porky's.
Right. If anything, it's way more female horniness than like, dude, I've got to get laid horniness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes,
Like,
100%.
if we're talking about how this is like an anecdote to Porky's, it's that they are portrayed as real people.
Yeah.
And it primarily seen from like the female perspective, and it's very. This is not a plot movie.
Nope.
Simple plot.
It's
Very simple
very
plot.
simple, but it's also the scenes and situations are very kind of, you feel like a fly on the wall, realistic. There must have been some great chemistry that the director brought to kind of like these actors to kind of like get them to kind of be comfortable and friends with each other and to really make it seem supernatural, almost like they don't even know the camera's there, you know?
Yeah, because there's a lot of just scenes of like, you're at the party. You're at the party with them.
Well, and there was a rumor at the time that Nicolas Cage and Deborah Foreman were going out. And when you read anything on the internet about Nicolas Cage talking about the movie, he says, I was just in love with Deborah Foreman. I thought she was the most awesome thing ever. So it was not a lot of acting for me to pretend to be in love with her.
Did you feel like they had chemistry?
Yeah, I think the chemistry is undeniable. But if we're talking about the party scene, I was very distracted by the clothing. That's
all my
mostly what
notes
I
are
was
about the
focused on.
clothing.
I was
And?
very, very distracted by the nut packages of the boys in their pants. Truly, I was. So chemistry-wise, I was. My attention was drawn.
not where you were pointed.
Elsewhere,
And the
frankly.
dancing. You were
Oh
distracted
yes, I was
by
very
the
distracted
dancing.
by the dancing.
The dancing was delicious. I loved every second of it. I still dance that way. But like, and everybody's like, they're committed to their dancing. They're so into their dancing. They're not like dancing, but they're like, yeah, I know I'm too cool. I'm not. They are not too cool. They're like, shoulders.
I've been
Like,
trying to think of the other nut package movie, Alice, and it just came to me. It was To Live and Die in L.A.
Oh, I love that movie.
Every man in that movie.
Maybe I'm attracted to
Now-
movies with boys with good packages. I
Now
don't
we know because I'm so distracted by the pants in that movie that I can't pay attention to what's going on around me. They're
Well,
so
that's
tight.
a complicated. That is a plot movie, Liza. And we
And
know
maybe
how
that's
sometimes
why
you struggle
yes,
with that.
Maybe that's why I like Valley Girl.
Curse of the Nut
But
package.
You know, Nicolas Cage, without being overly intense, brings such an intensity to that character that it's undeniable.
Yeah. Well,
And it's his first starring
Interesting
role.
word.
Chrissy will not be denied, it sounds like.
no. The man is. He makes his own chemistry with, he makes his own magic for sure. Because there's no one else like him truly in the whole world.
He doesn't need a full other movie to participate with him. He
No.
can already create his own energy
Yes.
in his own separate movie.
Right, exactly. It's like I feel that way about Matthew McConaughey as well. It's like sometimes it's like, does he know he's in a movie, or like, did
So
he
you
just
felt like
wander in?
you felt like Nicolas Cage and his performance was disconnected from Julie and the other characters in the film? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh. Okay.
No, I felt disconnected from it.
Oh. Okay.
Just based on like seeing Nicolas Cage and like not being able to see past his weirdness, right? So I'm bringing to it all of the Nicolas Cage feelings
History
that I
that you
have.
have. Gotcha.
Having never gotten to see it with no opinion of him
Right.
whatsoever,
Right,
which
right.
would be a totally different
Experience.
Well, in
Sure.
1983, you might have fallen in love with him.
Exactly.
But now it's impossible.
And maybe I would feel completely different about the entire movie.
Right. Gotcha.
In the way that,
Right.
like, I fell in love with John Cusack in Say Anything, which is exactly the same movie. Like, this is... Say Anything is the same movie as Valley Girl.
And they're all, well, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the, bad boy and the good girl. So they go to this party, they meet at this party, they kick him out and just, like, punch him right in the... Like, Tommy punches him right in the face, just like, you look weird. Punch.
You're talking to my ex-girlfriend, who I still consider a prize.
Punch.
Which, again, is the overdone, I think,
Yeah.
of that character a little bit.
For sure.
But we are immediately turned against that guy and must only hate him and feel so bad for, like, the forgotten character of the cute blonde... Do you know what's that character's name? The girl that Tommy
Dottie
makes
from
out
Pee
with?
Wee?
Yeah, Dottie from Pee Wee.
Which girl?
The one that we got our first boob shot that went up after.
Oh, the friend that he
Yeah,
goes.
the friend.
Yeah, what was her name? I don't think I ever even learned it.
I can only remember Stacy and Susie. I do not remember what her name is.
Because she was kind of like the sad character who...
The slutty one, maybe.
Yeah, but like...
A little bit.
I do not accept that term.
No.
She is into Tommy for some unknown reason, other maybe that she thinks he's a prize,
Thinks he's cute.
and decides that she's gonna sort of let her guard down and maybe go have some fun with Tommy, because girls like to have fun, let's not forget. And she sort of
In fact, they just want to have fun.
they very good. And it doesn't
all
go
they
to
really
plan for her, and then she feels crappy about it, and then has has trouble deciding what the right thing to do in terms of her friend is when later in the story when we get to it.
Well, a bit. Like, that's such a, like, thing that they drop in and then just like, oh, oops, don't worry about that, because they're at the party and everybody's just like, oh, hi. It's like how they greet each other is to just, like, make out. Oh, hi. Let's open mouth kiss and while we're dancing. And so Tommy hooks up with Dottie from Pee Wee. And immediately is just like, zip, let's get those boobs out.
Well, it could be time to talk about the boobs, maybe?
The boob trivia.
It's always time to
shall
talk
be
about
Are we
boobs.
rating them or
No. This was the first of the 4 required by the studio shots of boobs.
It was in the contract, apparently.
She had to show them 4 times.
She, that one actress?
Martha Coolidge, the director,
Oh.
was required to have 4 boob shots in the movie. This was 1. Alice and I counted.
We counted. Then there's bonus boob.
There is a bonus boob.
There is a bonus boob. There is
so there's 4.5?
Yes, Nathan.
I would say maybe 4.25 because one of the boobs is on a poster.
Yeah,
but
it's not a real boob.
It's not a real flesh squishy.
So the studio was like, we'll make this movie, but it's got to have this many boobs.
4.25.
Yes.
I would go for more. Like, you got to double the amount of boobs.
Which she was okay with if it was in the context of the movie. Like, it didn't seem to be just boobs. For
Yeah,
boobs.
I don't feel like any of the boob shots are gratuitous in any way. They don't feel gratuitous to me.
It didn't feel gratuitous that they're just like, she's wearing a jumpsuit with a sideways thing, and he's just like, zip, there's your boobs.
And open front bra, too.
Yeah.
Didn't feel weird
She
to
did
me
have
at
the
all.
bra open, like, there at some point.
Did you guys know about the 4 required boobs?
Of course not.
So did that feel like it was more part of the story then?
It felt, yeah, I would say, yeah, it did to me. It felt like it was, again, like you're kind of like the things that worked for me for this movie was that you felt like you were a voyeur in a real world, you know? And so it felt like these sexed up kids were, you know, what they were doing was felt to me very realistic.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
It did.
100%.
But so,
Apparently,
like,
your high school experience was very different, Chrissy.
No, not at all. But what I'm saying is, like, so who is this movie for then? Like, who are those boobs for?
13-year-old boys.
Right, but I don't see them being attracted to this movie in the first place.
Well, I guess that's why the smart producers were like, you got to have 4 boob shots in, because otherwise the boys don't come to the movie. I don't know.
No
I mean,
shot
the
added.
yeah, I don't know about the, I don't know the right word to use, but if I don't know what my opinion was when I was that old, but watching it now, it doesn't feel gratuitous. So I don't know how in the 80s I would have at all thought that it was gratuitous. But I do remember being like, as the antidote to the male version of, you know, there isn't anything more gratuitous than I'm going to look through a peephole so I can see some chicks in a shower,
See some boobs.
to
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
making out. Guess
Yeah.
what? Boys like to touch boobs, so of course he's going to unzip her and get her boobs out.
No,
like
of
that
course,
doesn't feel
but
weird to
then
me at all.
It's not weird if you're like, oh, this is real life and we're watching real life. It is weird if you're like, there's no boobs in Clueless, right? Because that movie, the audience it wouldn't make sense to have boobs in Clueless. So if this movie was trying to be Clueless, you know, because it went for the R rating and had the boobs and the language, it was an R movie instead of a PG movie, right? So
Right.
if they're really trying to appeal to not only the 13-year-old boys but all the 13-year-old girls, you take out the boobs.
Yeah,
Change the rating.
I guess this is in its place in time. It's up against things like Porky's and Meatballs, and where like sex comedies, like horny teenage sex comedies, were a thing. And so this is the producers, the studio is making a horny sex comedy,
Right.
But it's got this different vantage. You know, but it's
Probably
still very
fake.
much. They are very specifically making a rated R teenage movie.
But it's a romance, though. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
No.
That's and it's like, so if it was American Pie or something like that, like
Mm-hmm.
you'd expect there to be boobs, but like there's no boobs in Say Anything. Like Clueless is just as much about
Yeah,
her like needing
I
to
felt
get
like
laid
that-
and lose
that-
her virginity.
That period, it just didn't last that long. You know, maybe less than 10 years, and by then, like American Pie in some ways was like, oh shit, they're bringing back the rated R teenage movie.
Right. Yeah. So but I felt like this movie wasn't R enough to be like super R.
Yeah.
Well,
You
times
know?
have changed, right? So what might have... I mean, I don't know. I'm just thankful that I guess, you know, teenage romp, the guys are trying to, like, we need to still try and appeal to this huge market of the sexy teenage
Right.
romp thing. But in the hands of a female director, we get something blissfully very different, in my humble opinion. 'Cause
Yeah,
I,
the
too, am a
studio
woman
is
with
probably
opinions.
upset with what they got. You know?
No, yeah, and it wasn't upsetting to me, and I didn't disagree with it. I was just surprised by it. Surprised by the boobs and the F-bombs that just seemed like out of place for someone who like didn't experience this movie at all. I've never seen this movie before.
Right.
In the context of it being 1983 and not thinking that it was weird, because it to me, I was going into it expecting Clueless, expecting Say Anything,
right.
expecting Pretty in Pink, and it like, so those like little gritty elements were a surprise.
Right.
I was surprised by the F-bombs because
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a few years. And when Nicolas Cage cussed, I was like, oh, I don't remember there being that many F-bombs in this movie.
I remember being one of the things that upped its coolness factor for me.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, kind of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, exactly.
which Nicolas Cage is in for like a second.
Everybody's in that movie for like a second. But
Also directed by a woman.
well, and like that's I think the most apt comparison is that this
Yeah.
is like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was not what I was expecting going in. I was expecting Pretty in Pink, so it's like all of a sudden, what? There's boobs. There's boobs. Do we all see them? We see them. Oh, he's saying the F word.
Phoebe Cates.
This is Fast Times. This is not that, because the content of it, the rest of it feels so bubblegummy and like feels so like Clueless or Pretty in Pink. The comical way that they play the parents as like cartoonish hippies, like it just seems like there's no character in Fast Times who is that broadly goofy.
Yeah, I feel like if this movie was
Well,
made...
I mean, even Spicoli, who is like
Right.
a completely crazy character, is not.
But I feel like if
is real.
if Valley Girl was made just like 5 years later, it would have been PG. Like they wouldn't have had
They'd have
those
taken
mandates.
out. Yeah. So like, you see it as more of a Fast Times and less of a. Is
I
it gritty? Is it edgy? Is it?
It's half and half. It's kind of like
Yeah, for me, it definitely slides toward the edgy side for me personally, just because of what I was exposed to in Tallahassee, Florida at God Be High, not really having any I'm definitely, that high school was more on the Van Nuys side, I guess, versus the Hollywood side. So then growing up being like, I basically had as close to a mohawk as I could get at my school. My hair was dyed pink. Like I was the spikes, the whole thing. So I leaned into the like, I'm going to be cool and listen to the Plimsolls and like I'm, tough and rough and I'm a badass and fuck you and like all that stuff.
Sure.
That's what I leaned into in this film. In addition to it feeling really real and being sort of the first sort of like, women like sex too,
Absolutely,
and
but-
women think boys are hot too. And
No,
we
and I'm
think
not
all
talking
that
about
stuff
the
as well.
reality of it. Like the
Right.
reality is there, but just as a movie where it's like we're gonna try it. It wasn't real enough with the addition of this like sort of slapstick comedy that they're also putting in there.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't. I enjoyed all of it. I mean, I like movies that are both funny and yet have something to say as well, that are layered, I guess, even if it's unintentional. I don't know, right?
Well, and that's the thing is like I think that if we're comparing it to Fast Times, that movie has even weird characters, but it just like to me it just seemed like those pieces didn't go together. Like if it was going to be gritty, it needed to be grittier.
So I don't like Fast Times. That's like one of my least favorite movies from the 80s. I just find it really oddly paced, and the characters, I like Valley Girl much better.
Yeah. You're allowed to just be like, well, I saw this one and I like this one and this is the one that I like.
And to me, Valley Girl is more, it's sexy. I mean, it's not, you don't actually see anybody actually, simulating having sex. It's just kind of the lead up
except
to
in the
it.
bed, in the
It's Skip
it's
and
Skip
the daughter.
and the daughter.
I'd say that's still pre-coital.
They're rolling around more
Okay,
than
so
they're
not in the
humping.
way that we see simulated
It looked
sex
like he
all
was
the
going.
time
He was
now.
going for the
Yes,
for the ass for
he
the
was-
first.
He was
time.
going to the nether region, and
Right.
they cut away, is how it went. And that's one of the things that Martha Coolidge said was, to her, what's sexy is the wanting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's opening the package.
Right.
Absolutely.
The anticipation.
Which, at that moment is played for comedy because we're not sure if he's fucking the mom or the daughter.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we've got a whole kind of Mrs. Robinson's. There's like
Bingo.
3 soft subplots.
Yeah.
That never entirely like wrap up. Really, there's like I wouldn't even call it like necessarily the relationship with the parents a subplot. I guess it is, but I mean ultimately they're cool with whatever she wants to do.
Right.
We've got basically Dottie's desire of wanting to land with the jock dude.
Skip, I think.
No, Skip's the one who fucks the mom.
Tommy.
Tommy.
Yeah. Dottie from Pee-wee's.
Dottie.
And then we've got the whole pool boy Mrs. Robinson thing.
Yeah. Right.
Which I guess comes to a conclusion where so the mom is trying to seduce him. This is the one that kind of feels most outside of it, but it ultimately reflects one of her friends.
Did you catch the plastics line?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Excellent.
So she was totally trying to hint, like dropping a graduate reference and it just flies right over his head.
Right. I don't know why
Yeah.
he thinks he would have seen that movie.
Yeah,
but whatever.
exactly. And I guess it kind of comes to a close when he basically is actually into her daughter, which is his age.
Right.
You know,
Who's into him?
Or that's the package that presents itself to him, so
yeah,
he's all in.
It does. Yeah, it did.
I think he was
honestly
gonna get down with whoever
when,
he
when
found.
he was coming up the stairs. It looked like he was ready for
Well, whomever he
I
might
don't
find.
care.
for door A. But when door B was there, it's like, all right,
It's
fine.
win-win.
Yeah.
I don't care who's in the shower. I'm going to take
Yeah,
advantage.
at this point, this is probably his like first experience, possibly.
I don't know. Probably not the way those kids are banging it out left and right. So speaking of the shower, like we kind of got away from the fact that Nicolas Cage sneaks back into the party through the bathroom window,
Yes.
and then decides to hide in the shower until Julie needs to use the bathroom, and it's like he's in there for a long time. A lot of stuff happens.
It serves another purpose other than that, which it is second boob shot.
That's right. There are boobs.
There are boobs.
But also like waiting for someone when they need to use the bathroom is not super romantic, because it's like, but before I just listened to you use the bathroom, which some people are into as well, Alice. I'm not kink shaming anyone, but
That's
it's
not what I'm
it's
gonna
like
say.
let me just real quick before you go pee. I'm here as well.
Well, and it's a
People
bathroom.
go to the bathroom for lots of other reasons at a party, as is easily demonstrated by the shots in the film. Ladies go in to touch up their makeup.
Right,
They
sure.
go in to make out. They go in
Several
to do
people
all
also
kind-
took
Yes.
shits though, like that.
Sure,
But they,
sure.
Fortunately, they did not show those for the movie because
But it happened. And like just the idea that someone would be in a bathroom like when you weren't expecting them.
Oh, of
everyone
course.
else
There's so
did
much
not
like
know he
weird
was in there.
stalkery shit in this movie.
So
Come
you
on.
thought it was more stalkery than adorable, because I just thought it was
Yes.
adorable, the lengths that he went to.
If someone
meet up with Julie.
surprised me
It's
in the
a fine
bathroom,
line.
they would get pepper sprayed.
It's a fine
Like,
line.
Honestly, like that's a whole '80s movies problem, is that the fine line
Between
of
cute and
of
crazy?
cute versus stalker is if you like the person.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't think that's just an 80s problem, unfortunately, but
That's like a real life
it
issue.
feels very stalkery to me watching it now.
With, like, all
but
rom-coms.
his performance in the shower is adorable.
That's probably I agree with that, and it's played for comedy, right?
Yeah.
In also like a goofy way that to me just didn't fit with the rest of the movie. But yeah, like it's all those other people who are just like, guess what? There's someone in the shower. Like that would scare the shit out of me. Like
Sure.
now I'm always going to be looking for Nicolas Cage in the shower. I'm never going to be able to go into a room that has a shower without checking for Nicolas Cage.
Don't watch Psycho then. Just put that
It
out
was
there.
Nicolas Cage the whole time. It's what you don't know about Psycho. But I really love the part too where they're all just like, you know what we should do? Let's have a slumber party in our underpants. Like that part was so cute and fun, and I like that they were like, we already have really cute tank panty sets, but let's go see what your mom has to offer in the lingerie department. Like they were already on top of the
They were,
sexy-
but it wasn't lacy, right? So when they
wasn't.
go into Mom's, it's all lacy,
lacy,
stuff.
right.
And that seems like a standard movie moment where you have the girls get together and dress up and be cute and, dance
Yeah.
to a popular song at the time.
Yep. So, since this is also very, very real, how many underpants slumber parties did you have where you were like, you know what would be great at this hangout that we're having? Let's take our pants off.
Well, there was the one we
Okay.
had last night.
I mean, duh, come on. But I'm not one of those weren't my people in high school. So no,
So you don't think
I
that
went and
the-
had D&D parties with people
Right.
at the house. So it's like those weren't my people.
So the Hollywood people, when they have slumber parties, they're like, pants on. We're keeping our pants on.
No, I never had any. That was a movie moment.
Absolutely. There's
Yeah,
also
I didn't
like,
have any either.
no, I'm sorry, I didn't think to ask. I'm so sorry,
all right.
Nathan. You're right. That was my bad. But it also like really reminded me of Pretty in Pink. Like it's also the same movie as Pretty in Pink, basically, except it's the girl from the cool wrong side of the track, right? So and she works at a record store and she makes her own clothes, so that to me is like that's who the person I wanted to be. But they do that thing where it's like, I'm going to take you to this party where you will feel very uncomfortable.
Right. That's
and
out
then
of
I'm
your
gonna take
comfort
you
zone.
to
Yeah, sure.
this place where you'll be uncomfortable.
Right.
And then we're going to find a middle ground where we just hang out and have a montage of
Right.
running around and making out together.
I'm going to expose you to my culture.
And you won't like it, and you'll expose it to mine, and I won't like it.
Right, a lot of people aren't open to cultural differences.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello, world of today.
So basically, though, like, at the slumber party, she decides she's going to dump Randy and get back with Tommy because that's what her friends want her to do.
I think it's later.
Later than the slumber
Yeah.
party?
It's later than the slumber party. And I do
It's
like
after
the
she talks to
nod.
her dad, and then she
Right.
talks with her friends.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which
At
I have
the
to
diner.
say, her dad gives some really excellent parental advice.
Absolutely.
Like, he's so good. But I will note that I do like the nod to the fact that Julie is open to other cultures, because in that scene when she's playing with her makeup and she's doing the weird shit on her face, none of her other friends would ever do that. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit of a nod that she's okay with maybe exploring some other
Yeah,
stuff.
kind of a punk
Cool.
blondie style.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So, like, she just
And
decides
did we
she's
not
gonna
all
ditch
think that the
Randy.
dad was Sonny Bono in disguise?
I love the dad. I thought the dad
Yeah.
was great. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
the dad and
Right.
the mom.
But when I think of the movie, I always think, oh, and Sonny Bono played the dad.
Yeah.
Did not play the dad.
No,
Frederick
that's,
Forrest
From
played the dad.
Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
And, a lot of other.
It's a Diet Coke Sonny Bono. But she's the one who makes the choice.
She does.
Yeah.
She does. She caves to the peer pressure, and she goes back to the asshole, which again I feel is very real in a lot of cases.
And they go to prom. My favorite moment of this whole entire movie
Yes.
is the woman who announces prom.
I'm not surprised by
queen.
that at all, Chrissy.
I loved that woman so much, and I don't think that was the first time I noticed her, because I noticed her dancing, and then I was like, I noticed her dancing. She's right in between Tommy and Julie, and she's just like shoulders, shoulders, elbows, elbows. She's doing it, and then when I learned that she was an administrator at this school, I was like, wow, now she's living her best life. But then when she does the announcement, she's like, what does it mean to be king or queen? We can't all be queens and kings. In fact, I was never queen, but I wanted to be. This is all happening in the fucking background while she's like arguing with Tommy, right? Or no, Nicolas Cage
Nicolas
shows
Cage.
up.
Yeah.
And
He
I'm
did
like,
his
would you guys
Karate
get out of the
Kid.
way? I need to hear this speech. So good. But yeah, basically she's prom queen, but Nicolas Cage shows up.
And beats up a guy.
Oh my god, that fight is amazing! Tommy does the highest high kick, which in those pants, dangerous.
Yes.
Well, they were all double polyester. Come on.
Flexible. Very flexible.
Oh my god, they have a karate battle.
Yeah, they have a karate
Well,
battle, and the winner
sort
gets
of.
the girl.
Yeah.
That's literally what happens.
And
There's
she's
not
like,
like
okay.
a, babe, you really mean a lot to me. It's like, no, I have now beaten this man up. And she's like, yay! And grabs his arm.
Right.
She does.
She's
flip
like, yes,
back pretty
you're an
quick.
asshole too, so now you're okay. I'll go with you.
I found my type.
And she asshole, you're for me.
So where do you think
She got the best of both worlds in the end.
Did she?
Yeah, she got the edgy guy and the asshole.
And she got her crown. She got to be queen.
So really, so was that then his transformation? Is just to beat more people up?
Yeah.
To learn that that's how you win women in our culture is you beat up other dudes.
And to not give up, because he did a lot of other stuff to get her back, too.
That's true. That's true. We can't
He did
forget the 3D
dedication
scene
on the
and-
radio.
Right,
and-
jumping into her car.
Right.
Scaring the shit
Sleeping
out of
bag
her,
on the
yeah.
lawn.
Oh yeah, that was
Not stalkery at all.
That's so weird. And
So
like,
romantic.
We forgot the
You mean
other
so
driving
romantic?
scene.
the
Oh,
other
yeah.
driving
Oh,
scene?
the student driver
The
scene?
Oh my god, that part
driver
was awesome.
scene.
That was very,
fun.
very good.
Overreacting. He is just gonna earn his paycheck. The student driver.
Girls,
Instructor.
girls, ladies, please stop talking.
Talking about someone who's in a different movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like all those moments happen in Say Anything as well, you know, and those moments happen in Pretty in Pink, and it's like here they
Yeah,
are.
And I'm
it
sure
is
if we
Romeo
move-
and Juliet without the murdering.
And
Right.
did you catch Romeo and Juliet? Randy and Julie?
What?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mind
they
blown.
go one of the
Marquees.
marquees says Romeo and Juliet on it. Juliet
Yes.
on it.
Oh.
It's all over the place.
Un-
It's pretty
unashamedly
strong
Romeo
reference.
and Juliet.
If this movie had like a straight up murder, like I at that point
would
wouldn't
not
have
have
been
connected.
surprised. Like if you just like murdered the other, like, oh,
Uh-huh.
now there's murder.
If we bring this story forward in time and we look at it like the letters to all the boys I've loved, or whatever that big romantic comedy hit was on Netflix recently. Christy is furrowing her brow
50
at me
Shades
as
of
if I'm
Grey.
crazy.
I'm sorry. No, I just don't know what you're talking
it's
about.
It's a was it a movie or a series? Like I think it's a movie called Letters to All the Boys I've Loved, or to all the boys
Yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
loved,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So if you look at that today,
Uh-huh.
the archetype of the story hasn't changed that much.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Right, all those same things are in there.
Yeah, like
You know?
but I feel like this movie kind of soft presents the differences between them. Like, you know, like even though it's stuff that I totally love, like the parents are not Valley parents. Like
Right.
they're not like her.
Yes.
So like
Right.
if you know, if they were like a rich family, you know, and then we don't get to see Nicolas Cage's home life. We don't get to see this strong contrast between, you know.
So him driving down the street and almost being attacked by cholos is not showing his life.
Well, I
You
mean,
don't get to
but
see, like,
that's
his parents. You
Yeah,
don't
but that's
get to see him.
late into the movie. We're in terms of like presenting them as like wrong side of the track.
Oh, I see
people,
what you're saying. Okay.
In terms of like the Montagues and Capulets,
Mm-hmm.
the backgrounds are not. It's not super strong, but then again, it's a little more realistic. You know.
Right.
So it's
Although hippies becoming corporate folks was definitely a big thing in the 80s. Like that was a thing that
yeah, but it doesn't strike to me as like a Valley Girl family versus like the punk rock family. Like if if she was like upper class, you know, and then his home life, and we got to see like his parents or maybe whatever he's got at home.
I see.
Or maybe he's on his own. Like maybe
If you
he just
got-
crashes at friends' places.
Yeah, maybe
like,
maybe
you
it
know.
was just like what if he went home and it was just kind of like just his older brother who's 20 that he's living with.
Sure.
And you kind of see like like the crappy burnt out car and the neighborhood and that would have pushed the Romeo and Juliet thing a little further.
Even further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
For
totally
me,
agree with that.
the use of the hippie turners, for me, is another way for them to sell why she's more willing to date the guy on the opposite side of the tracks. Because if they were long time rich folks, you know, you would expect them to behave more like her friends. Right, whereas she's got the parents who are like, be you, you go out and live your best life, and who knows, the other mom who makes the sushi and almost sleeps with her
Oh
son,
my God, yeah.
right? Like, you know, it's a little bit more
She
archetypal,
was
like
making
asshole
that
rich
sushi.
people parents, you know.
She was making it.
But
with
I
her
get
own
your point,
hands.
Nathan. I get your point.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that this movie had been remade, and when, and how?
I totally surprising.
Recently. And there's some YouTube star who has a part in it.
Logan Paul. Paul Logan? Logan Paul?
I had the
Logan
Do you
same.
know who I'm talking about, Nathan?
I had no
Yeah.
idea.
So it got made.
I don't know what
It
you're
was set to release, and they pulled it because of his controversy.
Oh, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they,
And the chick, that's totally bad of me. The woman from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who plays the early recruit who then goes on to become Powers, I think her first name is Anne, is also in the film.
and they were interviewing, I think it was the actress who played Stacy, and she said that she has a cameo in it. A lot of people have cameos in it, but they just haven't released it yet. It's done.
Yeah.
Is it set in the 80s or it's set today?
No
Didn't have those
idea.
details.
Not a lot of information. I mean, I only found out about it reading up on this, and I was like, wow.
Do you have other fun facts to share with us that we did
Well,
not
you should
stumble
talk about
upon?
you haven't
it,
talked about Kevin Smith.
How much time
Kevin
do we have
Smith?
again?
Kevin Smith?
It's one of Kevin Smith's favorite movies. I mean, he adores the movie, which was the 13-year-old boy comment. And he had a screening of it recently in New York City, and Martha Coolidge and Deborah Foreman were there. And so she shared a lot of really interesting things about it. And it was one of the things that you said, Nathan, about the kind of film that the studio wanted.
Right.
They had the 4 required boob shots. And apparently, when she was filming the scene of the girl with the zip down the front and the front unsnap, they came in with a note, don't forget your 4 required boob shots, as she was filming that.
This seems like a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Get those boobs out.
But the first time they did the screening, they watched the movie all the way through the studio, and they stopped. When it was at the end, they looked at her and said, oh, so you made an art film.
Huh.
And they were happy with it. You know, I'm more impressed with the movie now that I've learned more about it, because she made it on a shoestring budget. It was like $350,000, and it grossed like $14 million. It was huge. And as a matter of fact, the studio tried to pretend that it cost $4 million to make, so they could make more money when they distributed it.
Wow.
And
Those studios.
I know. And stop me if I'm becoming too Cliff Clavin. First movie before Nicolas Cage got his teeth fixed,
Oh, yeah.
which Alice and I really watched for it this time around, because he doesn't smile very much in the movie.
And maybe that's why his facial expressions that should be smiles are kind of scary.
Don't blame it on that.
Yes. Yes. And it was written by 2 guys, and they specifically asked for a woman director because they wanted to make sure they got that perspective on it.
Which I think was the right choice. I always wondered if I'll Stop the World and Melt With You was a hit before this movie came out, or whether or not this movie helped that song become a hit. And I don't know the answer.
It's in a lot of other movies, too.
At that time, I don't know.
From later in the 80s.
I mean, outside of Valley Girl, it was a huge hit in the 80s.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's why I'm curious.
And also that song, A Million Miles
Yes.
Away.
The perfect first, kiss scene in a bar.
Yeah.
That song in the background.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 boob to 10 boobs, how many boobs do you give the movie Valley Girl?
Well, I'm going to give it 10.5 because of the bonus boob.
Bonus boob.
Well played, Liza. Well played.
That's my score.
Excellent. Miss Alice.
I would give it a 7 out of 10 boobs.
7 out of 10 boobs.
Yep.
And
They're strong
you're
boobage.
you're a harsh critic.
Unless I have strong nostalgia ties to
Absolutely.
something, and then I absolutely love that film, regardless
Do
if it's
you-
good or not.
So I give the clothes in this movie a 10. Like I would watch this movie over and over and over again just to see those clothes.
I have to say, I'm very glad that the turned-up collar polo shirt has not come back.
Oh, it's back.
Oh, it is back now.
Oh, yes.
I hadn't noticed that one yet. I'm happy to say.
Quite.
Let's hope tight pants does not come back.
I don't
know.
I think
You know
Alice
what?
might
I
be
want to
into
come
it.
back. I want to come back, guys, to stop wearing culouts and to stop wearing shorts that look like skirts and to actually shorts that look like shorts.
What? Boy,
For
wait.
the nut packages, right?
Yes.
No, not just for the nut pack, just for the thighs. Come on. You know, it used to be that guys wore shorts that were like midway up the thigh.
Yeah.
Guys do not wear shorts like that. They wear shorts that go down around their knees, so they look like they're wearing skirts. They look like they're wearing culouts. And I want guys to wear shorts again.
You want those thighs out. You want
I
those,
want the
you want
thighs
those
out.
balls packaged. You want those thighs
I
out.
do. I do.
May you get
This
your
is
wish.
a plea to America.
It's a plea to America, and if I
Men
ever have the
everywhere.
money to make a film, I will say there needs to be a required 4 nut shots in
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, like, things are going that direction. Like,
They
you
certainly
mentioned
are.
Game of Thrones. There is for every boob, there's a dong. You know, it's like
Yeah, but nobody wants to see that.
no one wants to see a penis.
Liza?
Yeah, that's what you're forgetting.
That's your opinion.
Yeah, and yes, I am a woman of opinions.
That is
Yes,
very
that's
true.
There it is.
So, did you like the clothes better in this movie or Buckaroo Banzai?
Oh, God, that's tough. I think I like the ones in Buckaroo Banzai a little bit more because they're just a little bit crazier.
They're weirder.
They're weirder.
weirder.
And I do have a penchant for the weird.
That's absolutely true. Nathan, how many boobs?
See, this is not fair because I'm very pro boob.
Oh no! Well, yeah, okay. So,
So maybe you should
How
give
many-
it 2.
Exactly.
You give 1 how many boobs for the boobs,
many
and then
nut
how many boobs for the
packages?
movie.
and then how many nut packages?
I'm gonna give it a 6.
Okay.
Just because I would have liked, I guess, for maybe a little more story, maybe a little less simple, but I still really kind of appreciated the differences that this movie had to like all the other sex comedies. Like I really felt like I was seeing a lot more truth than a lot of these other movies of just like, again, kind of being led into a bit of a more of a secret world that's a little less. It's a double-edged thing. I liked how it had less plot, and yet that was still kind of an issue with me.
Well, I think that like through this discussion, like my opinion of the movie has definitely changed. Like watching it as I did by myself, just sitting there like watching it. I didn't have strong feelings for it, but I can definitely see, based on like how you guys feel about it, I can see feeling that way. And I think like hearing what you pointed out, Nathan, is like, yeah, that's what I wanted, was either more of that or less of that. So I'm just gonna give it a 5 though, because it's like I don't know, like maybe if I come back to it again at some point, I'll feel differently about it.
I mean, it could be that if you didn't see it in the 80s, you may never be able to give it a really big score, because that's just
maybe maybe because I didn't see it when I was like, or I couldn't get past the things I couldn't get past.
I think some movies are special because of how they are different than what is everything else that's out there,
for sure.
And so it's like and it not only hits you at a certain time in your life, but it is again an antidote to all the other stuff that was available.
Right. And I think you don't get that same experience if you're just picking it out of the entire sea of every 80s movie.
So you should have watched Porky's and then immediately watched Valley Girl.
Porky's,
and you've been like, oh my God, Valley Girl's the best movie.
Or even better,
like
watch
a double feature.
Porky's, Animal House, Fast and Original. Like just watch 5 of those movies and then watch this movie,
and then been like, wow,
the difference.
It's an
art. What other movies do you feel are like that?
Are like
that stick out for like their time,
for their era.
For a time, for a place that kind of.
Right.
Or an antidote to the place and time.
Ooh, that's a good question. Like,
I
wish
one.
I had time to think about that question.
So and I don't know what the representative film would be, but through the 80s there was the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the big one-liner action movie, and there was a time when that got swept away. So whatever the first film is that sort of said, we're not going to do an action movie like that. I just don't know which film that is.
Maybe like the Christopher Nolan Batman that was...
No.
Yeah. I'm just saying like that's a Batman movie that's different than...
Yeah.
The other movie in the 80s that I remember being blown away by in the movie theater was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Because at the time there really wasn't anything like that with the fast pace, and it opened quick, and... I don't know if that's quite the same thing, but...
No, but and then also, like, in the 70s, we were still kind of climbing out of this very ultra-real reaction to... that's another reason why Star Wars was such a huge hit, that people were still kind of in the wake of Watergate and, like, these really hyper-realistic, everything is corrupt kind of movies, and thrillers, and, like... the disillusionment of society and government and things like that, and then suddenly you had like these huge kind of movies like Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark that were just kind of like not only like entertaining but big.
Good point.
Wouldn't it be neat if movies were fun, guys? Wouldn't that be neat? Well, we just watched Poltergeist too, and I'm like, oh my God, why is this movie so long?
Which is another good point about Valley Girl.
It's
Hour
short.
and a half.
Yeah.
It's not a big.
Although it's hard to make a long movie if you don't have a lot of money.
That's definitely true.
Or film. She was only given 60,000 feet of film, and that's all.
Wow.
That means
that
nothing
a lot
to
of
me.
theater
I look to you,
numbers?
Nathan. What does that mean? I have no idea what that means.
Explain in the digital age what that means.
Look, I haven't shot anything on film in 20 years.
Okay, so what would your deep cut recommendation be, Liza?
I went to romantic comedy, which is not my favorite movie. It's not the genre that I usually go to, so I thought of ones that I've really liked that other people might like. I've always loved The Goodbye Girl.
I've never seen that. Tell me about it.
Marsha Mason, Richard Dreyfuss. I believe it's a 70s movie, and it's the same plot. They meet cute, they're different, they get together, they break up, they get back together again. But it's really an adorable movie.
Right on.
I like it a lot. True Romance is another favorite.
Yes, True Romance.
That's another gritty version of this story.
Yeah.
Even grittier.
But with more killings than Romeo and Juliet.
Like I said, if this movie had murders, I would be more like, yeah, okay, now I get what I'm looking at.
If Tommy punching Randy wasn't enough for you,
It wasn't.
try True Romance.
Okay.
That may be the movie. And I've always liked Overboard.
Oh my god, I love Overboard.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn, that is just the sweetest, funniest, cutest little
We've
movie.
done Overboard.
We've done Overboard.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
you have?
Yeah, Overboard is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know if I just watched it because of the podcast or watched it just for my own pleasure. I can't remember anymore.
It was for the podcast, but it was both.
It's on cable all the time, which again may be why Valley Girl is never on cable, so people just don't see it.
But Fast Times at Ridgemont High is, though. Like,
that's now star-studded.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that could be it, too.
Right, because Nicolas Cage is really the only person in this movie that went on to be a big star, you know.
And Judd Nelson was considered for the part of Randy.
See,
in
that's
Valley
what
Girl.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like
He was-
Judd Nelson in this movie completely changes it for me. But that's because I'm looking back and I have those associations of Judd Nelson being that sexy bad boy.
Yeah,
you
and he
know?
is way more that bad boy than Nicolas Cage, who's just kind of more in that weird boy, you know.
Yeah. Which I like a weird boy too. I'll take a weird boy.
I'll take weird boy over any other kind of boy any day of the week.
I'll take charming weird boy any day.
I think when we talked about Say Anything, we talked about all the different people that could have been cast as
Yeah,
Lloyd.
yeah.
I think maybe Nicolas Cage was even among them.
Yes.
And it was just
Probably.
like that movie would not have worked for me if it wasn't, you know.
Last Cliff Clavin moment, Martha Coolidge picked Nicolas Cage off the reject pile because the studio kept sending her pretty boys, like, we need a good looking. She's like, no, I want somebody that looks like this. Nick Cage, no teeth fixed.
Nice. Yeah, I do think that you need to keep that in mind when you're casting.
You have to tell the rest of the story, though. And she went to go get him, and they didn't know who they were
It was
talking
the
about.
first movie that he made, Nick Cage instead of Nicholas Coppola. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
she pulled it, and it was like, well, he's committed to something else. He's doing a project with Francis Ford Coppola, Martha Coolidge. I know them, no problem. I'll call up and I'll get him off of it. So she calls up. I'm looking for Nick Cage, and they're like, okay, no Nick Cage because he's Nicholas Coppola. They finally put it together, but we do have a Nick, and it's a Nick Coppola. And so when she wanted to talk to him, she literally told him, if you make this movie with me, I will make you a movie star.
Nice. And it worked.
And it worked.
He's a movie star.
Worked. Because like, what year is Moonstruck?
Later 80s,
Oh,
isn't
is
it?
it 90s?
It's later 80s.
I
No,
thought
it's
it was-
definitely 80s.
It's 80s?
I think it might be 88 or something like that. So yeah, okay.
sounds about
All right. What is your deep cut recommendation?
The name just left me, but Liza, it was one of the ones that you mentioned as possible, like all with the boys.
Just one of the guys.
Just
oh my
one
god,
of the
I
guys.
love that movie.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It's not a good movie,
But you
it's
love
a
it
great
anyway.
movie. Yeah, it's not a good. That was filmed here in the Valley.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's I want to get that on this podcast very
Awesome.
soon. And yeah, another perfect example of like there are a lot of problems with that movie, but I saw it when I was a kid, so I'm like, yay!
And I did, again, romantic comedy is not my go-to genre, but I did enjoy the Netflix show or movie, as the case may be, that I was talking about, whose name I'm doing a crappy job promoting because I can't remember what it is. But
I'll
it's
look it
something
up.
about like letters and boys and
Boys and Letters.
Romance.
yeah.
I will look it up and in
To
the
all the
blog
boys I've
post.
loved.
There you go. Thank you, Nathan.
To all the boys I love.
Nathan.
Nathan, what about you? I can't wait to hear.
Well, my deep cut recommendation is no longer deep because we've talked about it so much. Like I came in,
Is
and
it
it's like
Fast Times that we're
no, it's Say Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of like it's practically a remake. They're so similar that it's again like, you know, John Cusack is not. He is the weird boy, you know. He's, you know, but he's so confident. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
You know, but I'd say that if you liked Valley Girl, that this Say Anything is in the same family. Like it's not. It's again. It's like 6 years later, and now they're not as interested in doing the raunchy stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's all gone. Like I don't think there's any boobs in.
No, none boobs.
Yeah, it's very PG at that point. So it's kind of, if anything, it's interesting to kind of see in some ways a very similar premise and how it's different just 6 years later. Once these teen movies aren't as raunchy, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And it is weird how similar they are, including like the boy being on the lawn and there being a karate fight towards the end. It is weird.
Which came first, Valley Girl?
Valley Girl, yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, like you can definitely see how this movie had influence that carried on.
Yeah. What I forget, it didn't say anything. Was there like a suitor, a rival suitor?
No, her rival suitor was Success.
Going and getting a
dad.
college
Right? It's
education.
the dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Ladies, go get your college education. I'm just saying.
do it. She did.
Yeah, she
She
did
brought
go.
him along for the ride. So my deep cut recommendation is a song by a band called the Bouncing Souls.
Okay.
And first of all, I recommend the Bouncing Souls. So if
Okay.
you're into like 80s movies and things from the 80s from the perspective of like, oh, I'm not from the 80s. Like I was in the 80s. I was there, I was there, but that's not like my era, but I love it. The Bouncing Souls really like have that, my experience of like, yay, we love it. The song is called These Are the Quotes from Our Favorite 80s Movies. And they're like a 90s punk band. So it's like, these are the quotes from our favorite 80s movies. And Valley Girl is all over that.
Oh.
The beginning of the song is that actual clip of him being like, that girl Julie is truly dazzling. Yeah.
Truly
But she's
dazzling.
not one of ours.
Are you going to play it for us?
Let's see if I can.
She's truly dazzling.
That chick, Julie.
And then like the part of the chorus is like, she's cool. He's hot. She's from the Valley. He's not.
Well, can we talk? Did you guys look at the poster? Every time I see
No.
that poster, I'm like,
It's not
it's
Deborah
not
Foreman.
related to the movie. It's,
and it's
so
not-
different.
It's the actress on the poster is the one who played the bathroom sex scene.
When they're in the bar, when he
After
goes back
the-
to his old
after-
girlfriend.
Oh, and he totally improv the. Oh, here it comes.
That chick Julie, she's truly dazzling.
Yep. But she's not one of ours.
She's cool. He's hot. She's from the Valley. He's not. Mess with the bull. Get the horns. Where's my $2? Where's my $2?
Yes.
So, Chrissy, I
That
think
is
you need to
so
contact the band
awesome.
and see if you can work out a deal for a theme song to your podcast.
I've never heard that. That is so awesome,
So
Chrissy.
the Bouncing Souls, a lot of their songs are like they do a version of Joe Lies when he cries, which is from Say Anything. So yeah, that's my recommendation. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. It just started playing.
No, that was perfect. I've never heard that before. That's great.
It's pretty good. Bouncing Souls.
Yeah, the poster is wackadoodle.
Isn't it
see it.
wackadoodle?
I've never seen it.
But yeah,
So
'cause it's
describe
not even
it.
the main actress. But I mean,
It's
it.
not Deborah
Describe
Foreman.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
describe it.
I mean, other than that, like it's kind of the premise I was expecting.
Yeah.
Of like a Valley Girl in pink with a shopping bag, and then like a punk with like colored hair, and then we kind of got a very softer version of that.
Yeah, which I'm I'm happy for because I
That-
wouldn't
that-
have gone to go see that movie.
And it's not her. It's a completely
Yeah, that's
different
the
girl.
weird part. Yeah,
The,
And then,
the
like-
woman from the bathroom stall sex scene. That's
with
what
a
it is.
blonde wig.
Right.
And there's the mall on one side and the Hollywood Hills on the other, and like Nicolas Cage is shirtless, which he isn't. Like I mean, like that.
Except
chest
the one
hair-
beach running scene.
but that his
That's it.
chest hair is not like it is in the movie, which is will really throw you off. Yeah, that's
Someone-
not.
yeah.
That makes no sense at all. But I think that's like that's a huge. That's the disconnect for me. Is that like that's what I was expecting. And that's not what it is.
No.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for being our very special superfan guest.
Thank you guys. It's been so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So Alice, would you like to direct anyone to any of your current projects?
Well, if anyone's listening to my other sister and I talk about Hugo and Nebula award-winning podcasts, they can just search on the interwebs for that.
Okay.
And they can listen to us
Excellent.
bemoan having to read so much Robert fucking Heinlein.
Or maybe this is the beginning of starting a podcast with Liza.
Could be.
Of course, you can find me at All Things NCT, NCT Phoenix the Place, NCT Phoenix Online. Most Excellent Pod is all over the place. Most Excellent Pod on the Instagrams and the Facebooks.
Interwebs.
On the webs. And where can people find your award-winning material?
Well, you can see All Things Squishy Studios at strangelysquishystudios.com.
It's good that all of our things are
Yeah.
on things that
I
they're
know.
named.
We've
And,
learned things from marketing people, haven't
Yeah.
we?
True. Yeah, and the best way to stay updated to what we're doing is the brand new Squishy Studios newsletter, which will probably pop up or aggravate you if you visit the website.
No, people will lovingly sign up for it, Nathan, because they're
Oh, that's
interested in
awesome.
all of the amazing things that you do.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Cool.
It'll be an award-winning newsletter before you know it. They'll find some way to give you a prize. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to do all the podcast things that you know you're supposed to do. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. Why won't you give us a thumbs up?
Review.
Why are you looking at me?
Because I don't know why you won't do it, Nathan. Give us a thumbs up, rating, review, share, tell a friend, all that stuff. And please do keep the Most Excellent podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and
Party on, dudes.
Totally tubular.
Bitchin'.
Pucoid.
as if